Hey guys, what is up? It is No Help and welcome back to another video today. So today we've got NPC defense changes. So this was part of the project rebalance that they were talking about in the past. So let's just hop right into this and see what this is all about. So our focus for this blog is rolling out changes to NPC's defense, including adjustments to their existing defense, bonuses, values, as well as adding some new defense types in the form of split up, range defense, and elemental weakness for magic. One of our primary motivators here is kind of selfish in that these changes provide us with more levers to pull for balancing NPCs in the future, which in turn provides us the new avenues to meaningful expand reward space. Reward space in old school gets trickier every year. Power creep is something both you and us are extremely conscious of and try to exercise sparingly where possible. In some cases like raids, it makes sense to move the needle upwards, but it doesn't make sense to displace something like the twisted bow with a reward from a Slayer boss, for example. I totally agree with that. I was gonna actually bring up the twisted bow because it's kind of like the power creep, but it is an extremely rare reward from a raid, which can take you hundreds and thousands of hours to get, not just a simple Slayer boss. In these cases, we've been increasingly filling in gaps or niches to introduce items that flesh out horizontal progression, meaning items like the Dragon Hunter Lance that really excel in a couple of use cases, but don't outright beat every other melee weapon. Now, I love what they've been doing with things like the Dragon Hunter Lance, Dragon Hunter Crossbow, what's that new bow called? The Venator Bow. Like, they're just very niche uses, but they're great. And I think they landed it perfectly here by the right tools for the job is a huge part of old school's feel. So elemental spells, elemental weakness. Interestingly, elemental weakness is a stat that already exists on a handful of NPCs in the game, denoting which style of spell they're weak to. Currently, this weakness is just a flat-out double damage bonus, but it's not communicated well to players and is only found on a very small number of enemies. To tackle the communication point, our first step is to simply make the elemental weakness visible via monster examine, so that you're not relying on another trip to the fabulous old school RuneScape wiki. So I like that the way that this obviously looks, 50% earth weakness. It'll show everything vulnerable to Dragon Bane weaponry. Like, it's cool. Okay, so some examples, I guess this is what they're going to be changing. So this section is going to feature a more detailed look at one NPC, a slightly more top-level look at two more, then provide a table summarizing everything we're looking at changing. We'll also include a link to detailed spreadsheet so that you can see the specific numbers for each change, and we'll include some links to special versions of the old school RuneScape wiki's DPS calculator, where you'll be able to see how different setups are impacted at different NPCs who've all had their new numbers and elemental weaknesses math plugged in. So example 1, the Adamant Dragon. Everybody's favorite walking Slayer points. The Adamant Dragon is seriously tanky NPC. These metallic menaces have high hit points, decent defense bonuses, and a whopping 272 defense. They're no pushovers. Let's take a look at their live versus their rebalance stats and then dive into exactly what this means. So let's just take a quick look at this. So this is the Adamant Dragon defense level, 272, and they'll keep it at 272. So stab defense 30. They want to change this to 20. Looks like some of these are staying pretty much the exact same. So right now, elemental weakness NA, but earth, it'll have an earth weakness plus 50%, which I guess could be pretty huge. So the changes here are reduced stab defense by 10, reduced ranged heavy defense by 30, and added a 50% earth weakness. Okay, so this would be like a mid-level setup versus a max setup. So with the Earth Blast, the live max hit is 20. This would be changed to 28, increasing the DPS overall by 55%. Broad bolts would The rebalanced DPS would go up slightly, increasing it by 20%. Dragon Scimitar will stay exactly the same. The Dragon Sword will go up by about 13%. And the warped weapon, or warped staff anyways, should stay about exactly the same. But if we switch over to the max setup, as you can see, the harmonized staff with Earth Surge, this will be a 71% DPS increase, increasing the max hit from 34 to 46. Crazy. So like magic would be a viable option to say kill adamant dragons, and then overall the other increases, the Dragon Hunter crossbow would be about a 9.6% increase in DPS, and the Dragon Hunter lance would go up obviously as well. Looking at these setups, we can see that Elemental Weakness Addition shoots Earth spells into irrelevancy, partially when combined with the Harmonized Staff. While keeping Dragon Hunter Lance the best in-slot option, additionally bolts see an increase in DPS potential, particularly in the lower tier setup, and even the humble Dragon Sword sees a pretty significant jump in power. This ticks all of our boxes by giving elemental spells a place, not displacing the existing best in slot gear, and better capitalizing on existing niches so they feel more rewarding to actually bring in the first place. Example 2, Gargoyles. Gargoyles are an absolutely classic Slayer monster who are technically weak to Crush. Remember that the point from earlier about how defense bonuses are less impactful on NPCs with lower defense levels? This is a prime example. Crush is the strongest attack style to use versus Gargoyles on paper, but in actuality, the difference between a Crush weapon and a similar stab slash weapon isn't all that significant. Coupled with the fact that it's easier to gain access to potent slash options like the Abyssal Whip than it is something like the Abyssal Bludgeon. It's just not really worth delivering some crushing blows to single gargoyles in your area. Fair enough, that makes a lot of sense, right? Like, if getting the Abyssal Bludgeon takes hundreds of hours, or a whip, if you have 85 Slayer, can take like 1-2 hours, right? So if we take a quick look at the stats, so stab defense live would be going up to 60. Yeah, these are some pretty interesting. This elemental weakness has no effect here. Crush would actually be negative 20. Very, very interesting. Example 3, the Giant Mole. One of the simplest bosses Old School has to offer, comes with the simplest example so far. Let's take a peek. So defense level would stay the exact same. Looks like a lot of it is staying exactly the same besides elemental weakness. Now before it didn't have this, but it will be plus 50% for water. So you could actually take water spells to the Giant Mole. So the full change list. So we've covered the why and the how. Let's take a look at which NPCs were changing below in this table that effectively summarizes whether an NPC has had an elemental weakness added, whether its melee defense bonuses have been adjusted, and whether the NPC has had a split range defense types adjusted. For more information on the specifics of those numbers, you can click here for a spreadsheet highlighting the before and after for all of the NPCs listed. If you'd rather not look at the spreadsheet or a big table, you can scroll down to the next section where we detail the Old School RuneScape Wiki's DPS calculator, what to look out for, and how to use it to look at all of the changes for yourself. We'll provide links featuring a variety of setups and leave you to freely adjust the NPCs. So if you take a look at the NPCs that they have provided, obviously we have already known about the Adamant Dragon, but even say the Baby Black Dragon, water will be effective here, melee defense adjusted, yes, and range split added, yes. So you can see these for a lot of the creatures in the game. A lot of the dragons at the start here, like some of the dragons are just awful to kill, and now that they might be a little bit easier to kill with magic, this could help lower level Slayer, which I was just thinking about now, could be very good. Even like Drakes, for example, fire giants makes sense, right? Water would be good against fire giants. Ice trolls, fire, all this stuff makes sense. Ice fiends. And then we go over like lava dragons, water. Like, this is actually a very good update because I feel like a lot of people don't use magic unless they're, say, bursting. The way I personally got my 99 magic was through using the plank make spell and elking and just freaking teleporting around the game. Like, never used magic too much in combat, maybe besides for a couple of bosses. So I do like the change for this, and it's really cool that they're adding changes for melee and range as well. They're also talking about how there will be a playable beta for these changes, which will be live on worlds 585, 586, 87, 88, and 89 once this blog goes live, so you can kind of test it out for yourself. Next, they talk about the old school RuneScape wiki DPS calculator, so you can get some gear on and test the DPS calculator for yourself, which is very good, especially with these huge changes. You can actually see if this gear would be better than the gear before. Maybe now you want to take magic here, maybe range will be better, or maybe the weapon you're using is actually no longer effective when you could be using something better, which is great. Also today we got some Varlamore tweaks and drop rates that we can go ahead and look at what they talk about right here. So first of all, we've got the Fortis Coliseum, and we've got the drop rates here. So for a unique, it is a 1 in 108 chance for wave 6. As you can see, once you get to say wave 11 and complete it, the chance at a unique is 1 in 28. So that's what you can expect for the unique drops, which is very, very cool. And then the other rare items, obviously, you can get the pet, which is 1 in 200, which is cool. And then the Dazana's Quiver, which is guaranteed upon completion of the Coliseum. Definitely a lot of interesting changes that we just went over today. I'm really honestly excited for the whole project rebalance and the NPC defense changes. I think that's probably the most exciting part of all of this. Obviously, the Varlamore tweaks and changes are great as well, just to make the game a lot better and healthier and whatever it is. But yeah, more to come. Obviously, I will catch you guys in the next video. See ya later.